Chapter 5, Insights on Relationship Conflicts. Conflicts in relationships have the potential to either weaken the bond or act as a catalyst for growth. Relationship expert Dr. Esther Perel provides invaluable advice on navigating these turbulent waters. Her insight serves as a guide for handling disagreements in a positive way, turning tense situations into chances for greater understanding and connection. Dr. Perel is an advocate of using reflection to resolve conflicts. Rather than reacting impulsively to discord, she advocates for a moment of introspection. Reflecting on the intentions behind criticism and disagreements becomes paramount, reducing friction and paving the way for more constructive conversations. Central to her teachings is the notion of understanding unmet needs. Often, conflicts stem from these unspoken desires, left to fester in the shadows of miscommunication. Openly expressing these needs creates a bridge that lessens misunderstandings and promotes understanding, creating an atmosphere that allows for the growth of mutual understanding. At the heart of Dr. Perel's wisdom lies the emphasis on connection over proving oneself right. Relationships are not battlegrounds for victory but landscapes where the priority is the well-being of the connection itself. Setting a connection as a top priority encourages couples to put their relationship's health and vitality above their desire to win arguments. Through Dr. Perel's insights, individuals gain a roadmap for navigating conflicts in relationships. Her teachings promote self-reflection, a better comprehension of unmet needs, and a shift in perspective from individual success to group connection. It's a transformative strategy that gives conflicted moments new life while building empathy, resilience, and stronger relationships. Chapter 6, Constructive Communication, the Backbone of Healthy Bonds. Communication is the cornerstone that either strengthens or weakens the bonds between people in the complex dance of relationships. This chapter reveals the transformative potential of constructive communication, in which disagreements become chances for understanding and development rather than confrontations. Reflect rather than react. It is similar to sowing the seeds of understanding to be able to stop and think when there is disagreement. Understanding the underlying motivations behind statements or behaviors is a deliberate decision that creates an environment where thoughtful responses take the place of automatic reactions. Unveil unmet needs. Conflicts frequently mask unfulfilled needs or unsaid desires. By honestly expressing their wants and worries, partners in constructive communication are invited to unravel these hidden threads. It's a conversation centered on attempting to understand one another and creating an atmosphere of openness and empathy. Choose words wisely. Words have an unmatched power that can either make wounds better or make them hurt even more. This part of communication entails expressing ideas in a way that promotes constructive dialogue rather than casting blame. It's about constructing a beneficial understanding environment by replacing specific requests for accusatory language. Prioritize connection. In the midst of disagreements, the main objective is to strengthen the bond between partners rather than proving oneself correct. With this type of communication, the health of the relationship itself becomes more important than individual successes. It entails putting the bond's essential qualities first and putting aside egos. Embrace vulnerability. Vulnerability is often welcomed in environments that foster true intimacy. Vulnerability is not viewed as a sign of weakness but rather as a means of establishing a stronger connection when partners communicate their needs in an open and honest manner. Practice gratitude. Amidst conflicts and disagreements, acknowledging the positives becomes a cornerstone of constructive communication. It's a technique that encourages couples to focus on their blessings when things are tough, creating an environment of gratitude and comprehension. This chapter is not just a list of ideas, rather, it is a guide on how to turn disagreements into chances for greater comprehension and intimacy. Instead of eliminating disagreements, constructive communication turns them into building blocks for a relationship based on respect, empathy, and understanding. Chapter 7, Consent, Beyond the Moment. Within the context of relationships, consent is more than just an oral agreement. It turns into a pillar, a continuous conversation that molds the foundations of wholesome and respectful relationships. The diverse layers that define and support consent in relationships are explored in this chapter. Continuous communication, a tapestry of understanding. Consent is a dialogue that is always changing rather than a fixed moment in time. It grows best in the rich soil of constant communication. It's about developing a profound, shared understanding of one another's comfort zones, wants, and boundaries. This dialogue isn't just verbal, it also involves actions and nonverbal clues, weaving together a web of understanding either through mutual experiences or honest communication. Self-awareness, the bedrock of consent. Self-awareness, or a deep comprehension of one's own limits, desires, and boundaries, is fundamental to consent. It's an introspective journey where people explore the depths of their emotional landscapes to understand their needs and effectively communicate them to others in a relationship. This self-awareness creates the groundwork for expressing needs and establishing limits, guaranteeing a respectful and mutually understanding partnership. Respect and acceptance, nurturing safe spaces. An atmosphere that values acceptance and respect above all else is conducive to consent. It's about creating an environment in relationships where limits are respected without passing judgment. Establishing a secure and welcoming environment promotes genuine self-expression among partners and creates a climate in which each person's opinions are valued and heard. Mutual understanding and empathy flourish in an environment where respect is the cornerstone of interactions. Community responsibility, cultivating a culture of respect. Above and beyond personal relationships, it is our duty to cultivate a larger community that preserves the fundamentals of consent. It involves fostering a social structure that respects and values individuality, boundaries, and desires. Establishing a culture that values well-being, safety, and respect is essential to fostering an atmosphere in which consent is not only accepted but also highly valued. Beyond personalization, depersonalizing the dialogue. Consent is a complex conversation that is about acknowledging boundaries rather than about being personally rejected. When consent is refused, it's critical to depersonalize the situation and steer the conversation away from attitudes of belittling someone. An environment of empathy and understanding is cultivated by realizing that a lack of consent is a boundary that needs to be respected rather than a reflection of one's personal value. Openness encouragement, fostering deeper connections. The foundation of relationships is strengthened when honest communication is encouraged regarding needs, limits, and comfort zones. Establishing a setting in which people feel secure and at ease communicating their needs promotes a deeper comprehension. The goal is to foster a culture that values the diversity of boundaries and preferences, one in which candid communication is not only accepted but encouraged. This chapter helps prove the critical significance of consent, a discussion that should be a part of every relationship. It serves as a reminder that consent is an ongoing conversation and that relationships are nourished by a culture of empathy, respect, and understanding that creates a safe, trustworthy, and mutually understanding atmosphere.